Now at 10 and streaming on CrossroadsToday.com, the man accused in the death of an Edna cheerleader will be arraigned this week. Tomorrow is primary election day in the Crossroads. We cover the top races tonight. And one top leader in the Biden administration is calling for an immediate but temporary ceasefire in the war between Israel and Gaza.
And good evening, everybody. We got a lot of moisture in the air and above us. It doesn't look like any of that is actually raining at the surface, but we've got fog for sure. By tomorrow morning, we'll be talking about that and the warm weather. All that coming up.
And the Jags celebrated a well-known legend this past weekend. I'll have that in sports.
You're watching 25 News Now at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Don Brubaker. Karina Garcia has the night off. The man accused of murdering Edna cheerleader Lisbeth Medina will be arraigned in court Thursday morning. A Jackson County grand jury indicted 23-year-old Rafael Romero last month. Romero is accused of intentionally causing the death of Medina while in the course of committing or trying to commit burglary, robbery, or aggravated sexual assault. The indictment accuses Romero of causing Medina's head to strike a firm surface. It accuses him of striking her head with what they called a hard object and, quote, repeatedly stabbing or cutting Lisbeth Medina with a sharp object or edged weapon, unquote. Romero had overstayed a work visa. He was arrested 5 days after the 16-year-old Medina was found dead in her Edna apartment. The court hearing for 4 former Industrial ISD students is set for Thursday morning. At that time, the court is expected to push the case to the next court date. Cullen Stumfold, Zachary Kukler, Christopher McCrory, and Braxton Warren face charges related to an incident of assault that took place on a bus last April. The 4 teenagers stand accused of assaulting a fellow student while returning from a road baseball game. The Texas primary election is tomorrow. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. 25 News Now reporter Lupe Zapata has a preview of some of the top races of local interest. Lupe?
Don, as you know, only 5,816 people showed up in Victoria County to vote early. That's 10.4% of the 56,141 registered voters. Now, here are some of the top races getting voters to the polls. Incumbent District 27 Congressman Michael Cloud faces 3 opponents: Chris Mapp, Luis Espinola, and Scott Mandel. In the Democratic primary, you have Tanya Lloyd and Anthony Tristan. Texas House of Representatives District 30 has 4 Republican candidates: former VISD board member Brett Baldwin, former mayor of Victoria Jeff Bouknight, retired veteran Vanessa Hicks Callaway, and former Jackson County Sheriff A.J. Louderback. With no incumbent in the race, whoever wins this race wins outright. Another big race on the ballot is the race for Victoria County Sheriff. Incumbent Sheriff Justin Marr faces Melissa Rondon Wasachek. We spoke with UHV political science professor Woodrow Wilson Wagner II. He says the current climate can be polarizing for voters.
My sense is that the negative campaigning, specifically in the District 30 House race in Texas, has really turned people off. And there are people that don't even want to go to their mailbox anymore. They don't want to see any more flyers. They don't want to turn on the local TV station because there's another ad. They're just ready for it to be over. And in terms of how that affects their vote, I think most people still vote for their interest, what a candidate is for, rather than what they're against.
Now, Victoria County has open voting, so on Super Tuesday, you can go to the one of 26 polling locations across Victoria County. Now, if a runoff election is necessary, if any of the races, it would take place on Tuesday, May 28th. Don, back to you.
Lupe, thank you. And here's your viewer poll this evening. Scan that QR code on your screen to vote now. Here's the question: who are you voting for in the District 30 state representative race? Vanessa Hicks Callaway, Brett Baldwin, A.J. Louderback, or Jeff Bouknight? Let's see if we can get the numbers going. Okay, well, we've had a change since 6 o'clock, because at 6 o'clock it was Vanessa Hicks Callaway leading at 40%. Now Jeff Bouknight has taken the lead with 51%, and it looks like 31% for Vanessa Hicks Callaway. We thank you for voting. On the eve of the biggest day of the primary season for the 2024 election, the Supreme Court ruled that former President Donald Trump will be allowed to stay on the Colorado ballot. This is a unanimous decision with nationwide implications. More than 12 states and 1 territory are set to vote tomorrow.
On the eve of Super Tuesday, the Supreme Court ruled that former President Donald Trump should remain on the ballot in Colorado. The decision follows months of debate over whether the Republican frontrunner violated the insurrectionist clause included in the 14th Amendment.
It was a very important decision. We're very well crafted, and I think it will go a long way toward bringing our country together, which our country needs.
The court was unanimous on the idea that Trump could not be unilaterally removed from the state's ballot, a massive win for the former president. The decision comes as his last major primary opponent, Nikki Haley, who vowed to stay in the race at least through Super Tuesday, faces a make-or-break moment.
We do have a country to save. So this is where you get to work. We need to make sure we go out in force on Tuesday.
Haley secured her first primary win this week in Washington, D.C. But some GOP strategists say Tuesday's race could be the final contest in her 2024 run.
There's just no path forward for Nikki Haley. She's a former governor. She had foreign policy chops. She had all of the resume and the presentation that should have done well, but she didn't.
More than 1/3 of the total delegates in both the Democratic and Republican presidential primaries are up for grabs on Tuesday. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Goliad Mayor Brenda Moses will be challenged by a current council person and a former mayor in the Mayor 4th election. The Goliad Advance Guard reports Councilwoman Robin Alanis filed to run for the mayor's office, as did Trudia Preston, who served as Goliad's mayor from 2016 to 2020. 4 candidates will also be on the ballot to fill 2 at-large council positions up for election. Let's take a first look at your forecast with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Pettis. And Mac, first question is, when do we expect more fog?
I'm going to give it a few more minutes. We are under a dense fog advisory for pretty much all of the crossroads. There you see us and Corpus Christi, and all of these areas along the coastal waters are going to be looking at some pea soup. Now, certainly by midnight, we're going to start picking up the fog. We're about 2 degrees away from it really going. So tomorrow is going to be a little soupy early in the morning, but it's still going to be up to 85 degrees. So we'll be talking about that coming up in just a moment.
Mac, thank you. There are increasing calls for the fighting to stop in Gaza during the worsening humanitarian crisis. Vice President Harris says there should be an immediate ceasefire. Her comments come after U.S. planes airdropped much-needed food and aid into Gaza.
A strong message from Vice President Kamala Harris as the humanitarian crisis grows in Gaza.
The immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
Hospital officials say this 9-year-old boy with cerebral palsy died in Rafah because he didn't have access to the customized diet that he needed due to ongoing fighting. His father sharing a picture of his son, saying when the war broke out, everything was cut off from him and his condition deteriorated. Harris meeting Monday with Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz, saying the Israeli government must allow more crucial aid into Gaza as it continues its barrage against Hamas.
Priorities that certainly we have, which includes getting a hostage deal done, getting aid in, and then getting that 6-week ceasefire.
Israeli officials denying reports of starvation in an interview with ABC's Tom Sufi Burridge, but say they're working to ensure the aid does not end up in the hands of Hamas.
People in Gaza right now are starving to death, and you're not letting enough aid trucks reach those people in need.
First of all, people are not starving to death in Gaza.
Well, the UN says they are.
I beg to differ. At any rate, Israel is enabling thousands of trucks to get into Gaza.
The U.S. conducting its first aid drop over the weekend, delivering 38,000 ready-to-eat meals. The Pentagon saying there are plans for more deliveries. Last week, more than 100 people killed in a scramble towards aid trucks in Rafah. Israeli officials saying soldiers fired shots toward the crowd, but say most were crushed. A UN team visiting a local hospital saying a large number of the injured had gunshot wounds.
UNICEF warning child deaths are likely to rapidly increase unless obstacles to humanitarian relief are immediately resolved. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
A report by the UN says there are what they call reasonable grounds to believe Hamas committed rape, quote, sexualized torture, unquote, and other cruel and inhuman treatment of women during its surprise attack in southern Israel on October 7th. That attack left 1,200 people dead and more than 200 people taken hostage. The report released on Monday showed information that said some hostages were subjected to the same forms of conflict-related sexual violence, including rape and what they called sexualized torture. The U.S. Supreme Court temporarily stops a new Texas law that lets police arrest migrants who enter the country illegally. An emergency request filed Monday by the Justice Department sets up another legal showdown over the federal government's authority over immigration. Under the Texas law, state officers can arrest people suspected of entering the country illegally. The law was set to take effect Saturday. It's now blocked from going into effect until next week. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued Hutto ISD Monday night for using state resources to conduct illegal electioneering. Castleberry and Denton ISDs agreed to injunctions against such electioneering, and Frisco ISD was placed under a temporary restraining order. Denison, Huffman, and Aledo ISDs were also sued for electioneering charges. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell so you can see Crossroads Today on YouTube. A couple from Portland, Oregon is among 3 people suing Boeing and Alaska Airlines over that door plug blowout incident. That's coming up on 25 News Now at 10. Also ahead, authorities in Miami are putting in new rules to keep spring break safe this year. People were killed and 3 others injured in a suspected gang-related shooting in California last night. Police say 3 suspects got out of a vehicle and began firing at a tent in the front yard of a home last night where a birthday party was believed to be taking place. The 4 victims were only identified as a woman and 3 men. The other 3 victims went to the hospital for treatment. Today, police are looking for a silver Kia in a connection to the shooting. The suspects are considered armed and dangerous. The FAA found multiple instances of quality control issues at Boeing following a 6-week audit. FAA investigators found non-compliance issues in multiple areas of Boeing's operation. This is in addition to a separate report started prior to the door plug incident but released last month. That report found gaps in Boeing's safety culture. The FAA gave Boeing 90 days to produce a quality improvement plan to fix issues and address findings of both audits. A couple from Portland, Oregon, and another passenger have filed a $1 billion lawsuit against Alaska Airlines and Boeing. They were on board that Alaska Airlines flight in January when a door plug blew out midair. Their attorney says the warning signs were present way before they boarded the plane.
It's the sound of an airplane taking off. That still sits with Amanda Strickland and her boyfriend, Kyle Rinker.
I don't think there's been a day that's gone by that we haven't thought about it.
They tell me they were both seated just 2 rows diagonally behind where the door blew off Flight 1282. And it's something they still think about every day.
Now we have to change our lives around this fear of flying now.
They still can't believe it happened and say the chilling whipping of the wind when the door plug blew off still haunts them.
It was so intense, the whole thing. We couldn't hear anything that was going on. All we felt was the air and heard the sound of the air rushing by.
Their attorney, Jonathan Johnson, says the warning signs were there and people shouldn't have been on this flight to begin with.
The issue with Alaska is on this particular aircraft, they had gotten several warnings, air pressure monitor warnings. In fact, I think they had said this aircraft couldn't fly over water.
As traumatizing as the experience was for the couple, they say it had the potential of being much worse. As Strickland recalls how she almost switched seats with a teenager sitting in the row where the blowout happened, and says she's grateful she didn't.
When we touched down in the plane, I just started sobbing because I knew that I almost asked to sit there.
Strickland says she loves the window seat and knows if they would have switched, she would have been sitting at that very seat when chaos erupted.
A spokesperson for Alaska Airlines said the company could not comment on pending litigation. After a repeated history of violence and disruptive behavior, police and city leaders in Miami are putting in changes that might cancel spring break this year, such as curfews, bag checks, and restricted beach access. Last year, Miami had 2 deadly shootings during spring break. Police are now working extra hours during the week-long holiday and using drone technology to monitor crowds. Still, there's concern that partiers will push up north to places like Broward County, who also have their own safety measures in place. Mac, I can't believe we're almost at spring break.
I know. It sounds, and you know what? The temperatures are already at spring break levels, so whatever beach they wind up at, they're going to enjoy it. Right now, we're at 70 degrees, folks. Oh, I forgot to show you. Okay, well, let me see if I can do it. No, I can't. Anyway, we managed to get up to 82 this afternoon. Here we go. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, and here's the humidity, here's the temperature, and if we drop another 2 degrees, the fog's going to evolve because the humidity and the temperature are almost the same. The 82 that we had today compares to 73, which is a 30-year average temperature for this date. So yeah, we're a little bit above normal. Talking about the fog and the rest of the week coming up in a moment. Well, good evening, everybody. Before we do the weather, wanted to tell you something I think is wonderful is happening here. The Texas AgriLife Extension is doing a Panhandle Wildfire Relief Supply Point. So here at Otto's Coastal Hay out there on Goliad Highway, they've got two 18-wheelers, and they're getting ready to load them up with supplies that you may have extra that you want to send to the ranchers up in the Panhandle, okay? Now, they have a list, and it's pretty specific, because I said, oh, they want hay, and they say, no, nothing but hay, no hay. And I said, but they do want fence posts, they want fence clips, things of that nature, alfalfa cubes, cattle cubes, calf starter for the baby calves that were all affected. You know, their mamas are no longer with us, and so they've got to do all that. So if you know what it takes to do ranching, there's a list of stuff that they need, and if you can participate, that would be awesome, because the concern I have is that if we lost so many cattle that we're going to have a shortage, well, then how's that going to feed into the food supply? It's a big issue. We've got all this moisture above us that's streaming overhead, but it's not really rain. I mean, it is moisture, but it's not hitting the ground. Now, this is definitely hitting the ground up here, but that's in Louisiana. This is just the thick overcast and the thick moisture that's coming through our atmosphere, but it is trapping down all of the moisture that's here. We're going to be looking at fog again tonight, maybe after midnight. By 2 o'clock in the morning, it'll be fairly soupy. By sunrise, those of you getting up really early, we're looking at half-mile to maybe a quarter-mile visibility, so just keep that in mind and drive safely. The good news is after about 9 o'clock, it all burns off. Temperatures are going to be on the warm side for the next couple of days. Oh, these are the counties that are under that dense fog advisory. So it includes Victoria County on the north all the way down to Nueces. And these counties out to the west, they're under, believe it or not, a cautionary statement for fire weather danger. In other words, humidities are going to drop very low over there. So what's happening? Well, we have a dry line. It sets up every summer. We talked about it last year. This is the humid air. This is the very dry air. In the middle, sometimes it triggers off some thunder showers, but we are going to be humid and they're going to be very hot and very dry. Temperatures across the state are going to be in the 90s. Now, we're looking at, of course, that rain and that cloud deck that moves away. We get a little bit of a break, but then it all rolls back in. So we've got our Wednesday rather soupy as well, with the morning fog and the afternoon cloud deck. This is all going to change by the time we get to the weekend, because over the weekend we've got a little frontal system coming. Notice the temperatures, 85 tomorrow, 83. Now that's for us. Inland, it's going to be even hotter. 77 on Friday, and then 68 high temperature on Saturday. Exciting. So here we are, mid 80s, right? Look at that. Even San Antonio, Austin, 90s, 93 to 95 out along the Rio Grande. It's a bit early for this stuff. It's not even spring break, but it is definitely going to be here. The only good news is that Amarillo is going to be at 69. They could use a break. All right, let's take a look at your extended outlook for tomorrow. We're looking partly cloudy and fog early, then up to 85 in Port Lavaca. In Cuero, up to 87 with abundant sunshine in the afternoon hours. And so we're going to be on the hot side of things all the way through Thursday. Then Thursday night and Friday morning, we have that little front that hopefully will give us a bit of a cool down. You know, 68 sounds absolutely delightful for Saturday. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Scan that with your phone and put Crossroads Today on your phone. We'll toss it over to Zach with sports.
Thank you, Mac. The UHV Jaguars celebrated a legend, and let's just say they had a pool party. I'll have that in sports. The UHV Jaguars, winners of 4 in a row, and they had the opportunity to celebrate not only a Houston Astros legend, but one of their own. Of course, we're talking about the first head coach in program history, the great Terry Poole.
Ladies and gentlemen, Terry.
In the early portion of this season, the Jags have been busy celebrating, first with their championship rings and now one of the most important figures in program history, that being the original head coach, Terry Poole, who athletic director Ashley Wallachow says took this job before they had a bat, a ball, and a stadium back in 2006.
And part of that charge that Terry was given was also to prove that this community could support athletics and we could raise the money, not just for baseball and softball, but to show that athletics could be viable in Victoria. And that was a tall task. And I don't think anybody else could have done it but Terry Poole.
With him, when this program first began in 2007, current pitching coach Doug Heinold, who has a great relationship with Terry Poole. Heinold always well-mannered, very kind, but he's been ejected from a game one time. While talking about his time at Riverside, Poole spoke highly of Doug, but also couldn't help but tell about that one time he was kicked out of a game.
We were playing a game right here, and the umpire was really bad. He was calling balls and strikes all over the place, and our players were getting on him from the bench. They said if they did it one more time, they'd throw somebody out. And sure enough, somebody got on there. Umpire turned around and said, "You're gone." Well, I'm at third base. I walk over to the umpire and I said, "Who did you throw out?" He says, "I don't know, Terry," but he says, "You just pick one." Well, about that time, Doug was walking up from the bullpen, and I said, "Hey, Doug." He said, "Yeah." He says, "You're out of here." I walked up to the umpire, number 13, "You're out of here."
That humor, a peek into the great relationship Terry Poole had with his staff over his 16-year tenure as the head guy. And to cap off his day, he got to throw out the first pitch to current head coach Jonathan Stavanoa, who he had a hand in bringing to the Jaguar program.
Jonathan is a good coach. I saw him at Texarkana over there, and I knew he did a lot of the things that ran that program. And so I had my eye on him for if I ever did leave UHV, he'd be one of the guys I would certainly consider for Ash to talk to. And I was just absolutely thrilled when he was named the head coach here. UHV baseball program is in great hands.
From being the first coach to helping them get their next great one, Terry Poole has his name all over UHV athletics, and he will now have a banner with his name and jersey number hanging out in center field.
Yeah, lots of fun over at the ballpark. Don, back to you.
All right, Zach, thank you, and stay with us. Coming up on 25 News now at 10, we'll take a last look at your weather. Plus, 2 people are accused of stealing Venus flytraps in North Carolina. For the Oscars today, to vote, come to crossroadstoday.com/predict to enter the giveaway. The top 3 winners will receive a $50 gift card from our friends at Dick's Food Store. The Oscars pre-show is right here on KABU TV Sunday at 5:30 p.m. and the Oscars start at 6 p.m. Sunday. In North Carolina, 2 people are accused of stealing nearly 600 Venus flytraps. It happened last month at a nature conservancy near Wilmington. Someone reported seeing the 2 people digging up the plants. They were later found at a nearby gas station. Police found the plants in their backpacks. The plants begin to bud flowers this time of year, and that makes them easier for thieves to find. Police say some people often dig them up and sell them on the black market.
They're an odd plant. People like to dig them and resell them, either on the black market or even locally sometime.
The rare Venus flytrap is native to that state, and stealing them there is a felony.
Really?
A large bull was seen strolling through a Florida neighborhood in the middle of the night. Officers receiving the unusual call about a bull on the loose around 2:30 this morning after a neighbor spotted the giant animal lurking in their front yard. The large bull showed no interest in leaving as it chewed on grass. Officers eventually corralled the bull, and it was safely reunited with its owner back on the property where it lives. And now, since you've seen the video, you know that story is
no
bull. There we go. You're waiting for it. It was still coming.
I was waiting on it, man.
It's a very moving story.
Yes.
That was no bull.
Well, you know, I wonder if some drivers will be on the horns of a dilemma in the morning. They have
yes.
fog, here it comes.
They'll be going, You'll be honking your horn. Do be cautious in the morning, folks. We do have a dense fog advisory up. By sunrise, we'll probably be looking at less than half-mile visibilities. So that'll be hanging around until about 9 a.m. Then in the afternoon, we're going to spike the temperature up to about 85. That's about 3 or 4 degrees from our record, so that's going to be interesting. Hot and humid all the way through Thursday, but a little bit better after that little front comes through on Friday.
Thank you, Mac. And finally tonight, a magnet fisherman made an unusual and potentially dangerous discovery in a Massachusetts river. He pulled an object he thought was a mortar out of the Charles River, but the Massachusetts State Police says it was a military projectile. The bomb squad says the object was 12 inches long, 4 inches in diameter, and severely deteriorated. They were able to dispose of it without incident. So I guess it's kind of good news that it was severely deteriorated, or else a projectile like that, well, you just don't know.
It probably goes back to the Civil War, you know, because it's basically just metal going. It didn't have an explosive in it. I don't know. I wasn't there.
They still find stuff from that era all the time.
Sure,
so,
you can.
We'll see. All right, thank you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us for 25 News Now at 10. Join Carolina, meteorologist Parker Cox. 25 News Now, sunrise starting at 5 a.m. Good night, everybody. Watch out for that fog.